Alright, hello, welcome. We are back with yet more Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Let us continue Episode 2 of the Great Ace Attorney 2, the Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro, which seems like this is going to connect to the case starring Mr. Saseki Natsume from the previous game. So, curious to see how this pans out. Let's go. Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight than in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
Here we go. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer, just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite an extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. Oh. That was the last case of the previous game, right? Where, we had to admit that Magnus McGilded was a actual criminal, and we got him off through less than savory means. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. Yay, we're gonna get Iris and Sholmes back. 30th of August, 7:28 a.m., Sholmes' suite. Ah, Bruno, good! I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready! Good morning, Iris. Smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning. Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, I see. So that's it! Aha! Get away. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have this very morning met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course. Though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been that way since I first met you. Oh, it has? And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember? By you? Hurley pulled your button off? Ah yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped! Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. However, what matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Hurley, Bruno said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it goes cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, as published in Ranced magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it? Really? That's right. And she had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh, yes. What fun. Here, look at my armband. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, about this. Shh! Not another word! Oh, yes, I see. This would be a collar for a breed of miniature canine with a particularly long neck. And for winter use. Actually, it's the armband I always wear that symbolizes my role as a defense lawyer. Precisely. Which leads us to but one conclusion. Your arm is, in fact, the particularly long neck of a miniature canine. I'm starting to wish I'd never shown him this now. The man's barking mad. Hey, look, we can check out Iris's apartment, or Sholmes' apartment, I guess. Hey, there's his machine, it's back. That machine really is imposing, isn't it? But I can never remember its name. Hurley calls it his great analytoscope. It can analyze anything at all. That doesn't really help me. What does analyzing something even mean? Ah, an extremely astute question, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Well, as Iris said, my machine here spits out analysis results of anything with which you care to present it. But how to interpret those results, that's the key. And I confess, I have no idea. Clearly, I'm going to have to construct a great analytoscope. Analytoscope. Oh, okay. Yeah, that one threw me out. Construct a great analytoscope to solve the problem. That might not help. What do we got over here? Books, papers, scientific implements. These shelves are stuffed to the gunnels. Miss Sasato wouldn't be able to help herself if she were here. She can't stand mess. Susie might not be able to stand mess, but she wouldn't dare touch those shelves. Oh, why not? Everything's in intricate balance. Hurley spends ages on it. If you were to touch even one thing, the whole lot would come tumbling down. Ah. Susie noticed it was a very delicate arrangement right from the outset. You make it sound like a meeting of great minds, but the truth is, Mr. Sholmes just needs to tidy up. Clean up your room, Sholmes. Wait. What about his violin? There we go. Ah, yes, Mr. Sholmes' faithful musical companion. Wasn't this violin made by somebody famous? Yes, it's a Stradivarius. Though I'm afraid you'd have to save up for 100 years before you could afford one, Bruno. But didn't you buy it for a song, Mr. Sholmes? I found it ponderably among the forfeited articles. It clearly said Stradivarius in the label. What? The ignorant broker had no idea of its true value, you see, so I paid a mere 55 shillings for it. Yes, I have something of a turn for shopping. Sherlock Sholmes, bargain hunter! But is it really a Stradivarius, then? But of course, my dear fellow. It said so on the label. I think perhaps the ignorant broker had something of a turn for selling. When it gets to this time of year, Londoners seem to leave their hearths alight all day long, and I love it. There's something very relaxing about watching the flames flit and dance about. But a fireplace in days of summertime is a waste of space. Really no use at all. Rather like a great detective in days of no crimes and no criminals, Hurley? But consider this. Instead of a fireplace, a frost place. That's my latest idea. An extraordinary hearth from which emanates a cool breeze in the hot summer months. What do you think? I think if you invented such a thing, your name would go down in history. The principle is extremely simple. One must, of course, light a cold fire in the hearth. Yes, of course. Brilliant! The trouble is, none of the fires I build ever burn cold. How it taunts me. So, as you British say, it's a bit of a damp squib. And then, of course, we got his paraphernalia. Ah yes, the huge metal chest with the lace cloth laid on it being used as a table for tea and coffee. It's very sturdy, that's for sure, and firmly locked shut. That chest contains my father's detailed records of Hurley's many cases. Yes, so I've been led to believe, though personally I've never actually seen inside. And that's the way it will stay. Those papers are a secret between Daddy and me. If you go opening it uninvited, you might find yourself being bitten. What? Is there a beast inside there or something? Yeah, it's a poisonous snake, right? These are different pieces of evidence from cases you've solved, aren't they, Mr. Sholmes? Not quite, Mr. Naruhodo, not quite. These trinkets are a selection from cases I've solved with particular aplomb. They are souvenirs of my success. Memories, Mr. Naruhodo. Memories. Really? So tell me all about the cases in which the bust of Napoleon featured. I forget. Memories, he says. Wonderful, Mr. Sholmes. Wonderful. Good job, Sholmes. We know you can do it. Ah, yes, this is where you note down ideas, isn't it, Iris? What's in the melting pot today? The blue carbuncle? Yes, it's from a case of theft that Hurley solved ages ago. The theft of a precious stone. A carbuncle is another name for a garnet, you see, especially if it's cut with a rounded top. Oh, really? And this garnet was blue, was it? Hello! Well, that's the thing. They've usually red. No blue garnets have ever been discovered. Oh. So who knows what the stolen gemstone actually was? That's the real mystery of the case. A proper Sherlock Sholmes conundrum, huh? There are so many different bottles up there on that charming little set of white shelves. Oh, do be careful, Bruno. You mustn't try the contents of any of those bottles, even if you're hungry. I wouldn't do something stupid like that. I'm not a child, you know. Well, I wish I could say the same for Hurley. The other day, he polished off a full bottle of one of my alkaloids. He what? He said he was hungry. I'll be extra careful. I look forward to finding out what aroma your tea will have, Iris, every single day. Well, I infuse a different concoction of herbs from the garden every time, so it's never the same twice. When you call it a concoction, it sounds more like a science experiment than something for tea time. Oh yes, that's because different blends can have very different properties. Some calm you down, some make you feel jolly, some give you energy. Today's particular blend is something quite special, so you're really in for a treat. That sounds ominous. Nothing particular of note here. I think we're looking... Oh, here's the stack of books, maybe? Nope. Making sure we get all the sites in here. There we go. I can type with my eyes shut, you know? I can believe it. When the deadline's approaching, you sound like a Gatling gun. That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one. It woke me, actually. I was typing for a whole hour in the pitch black, but I didn't make a single mistake. I dreamt I was playing the Typing of the Dead, Overkill. That's incredible. But then, when it got light, I found that there wasn't any paper in the machine. Now I wonder if I'd actually been typing at all. I think you might just have fallen asleep on the job. Alright. Let's talk about the letter. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning by International Post. Oh, how lovely! Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Oh, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? I cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume... No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do. We helped the man twice. You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago. They keep talking about the 2 cases. When are we going to find out about them? I thought this was the case. Ah, the mustached, twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. He didn't have 2 mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those 2 cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Clearly they did. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. Very... Hey, I made that joke, Naruhodo. So, what was this startling news penned by Mrs. Sato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah yes, it's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten that. Anyway, in her letter, Mrs. Sato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago. For what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Mrs. Sato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikitoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case, yes! It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said. Very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? Are you playing dumb right now? About why Miss Sato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? I'm starting to wonder if Sholmes is as much of a dope as he plays up, and he might just be pretending to be an idiot sometimes, but then sometimes he just comes across like a complete idiot, so I don't know. Alright, Mr. Sato's repatriation. It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No, it just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. You were fake news. Okay. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home? Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Mr. Sato's father is hiding. Harley, do you know what it's all about? Well, you're ready. Well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley, don't worry. See you later. Wonder where he's going. He scuttled off rather quickly there. I think perhaps Professor Mikitoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. Aha! I found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case? That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Bruno? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit? And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in court that followed, reliving every detail. I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world, because of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Okay, so this is going to be a flashback case, right? Prediction time. And then we're going to get into, in the next case, probably, the actual, like, him, because obviously he's going to be able to practice law again at some point. But, we'll see. It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but, by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time, and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. He received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bots at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. 21st of February, 5:30 a.m., St. Bartholomew's Hospital. Recovery ward. There you are, at last! Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. This is, the same hospital you were in. But, never mind. I think not. Oh. You're late. What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back? Her name is... Ah, yes, here we are. Miss Green. I wonder why she's named Miss Green. Okay. And why is there a rat just hanging out over here, by the way? A mouse, Mr. Naruhodo! An enormous mouse! Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump. I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you were thinking. What is this? This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you'd call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? My, Mr. Naruhodo, I didn't know you had the sense for matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Let's read your medical chart. Ah, this looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed. What is this place, a zoo? You know, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park. For the pigeons, yes? This is a person. Poor woman, I hope she hasn't read this. There are lots of bottles in that cabinet, aren't there? Do you think it's safe to keep them like that? If you were a patient here, I feel sure you'd take some medicine by mistake when you were half asleep. That is a worry, but at least the cabinet has a lock, even if it's only a flimsy-looking one. Oh, Hello! No doubt you managed to unlock that somehow while you were half asleep as well. There are limits even to what I can do when I'm half asleep, you know, Mrs. Sato. Ah, this looks like the treatment notes for whoever's occupying this bed. Let's see. Do not permit to run around the hospital. The patient doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so... he or she is probably running around the hospital then. Oh dear, how worrying. What's worrying is why they haven't discharged the patient yet. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet. Look, I'm not sure if it's safe leaving them in reach of everyone like this. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two. Well, at least there seems to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worry that you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Mrs. Sato. Alright. Oh, here's a bag. This must be a bag of Miss Green's personal belongings. She would have been brought directly here after she was found stabbed on the pavement, though. I expect a friend or family member probably brought some things for her. Alright then, let's see what's inside. A change of clothes, no doubt, and... No, Mr. Naruhodo, you must never scrutinize a young maiden's personal belongings. But the young maiden might have chocolates, or biscuits, or caramel. Well, let's talk to her. Good morning. Hello, I'm, Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Oh no! Was it your knife that... Are you the man who... Oh, no, I'm a lawyer. I'm Susato Mikitoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no, was it your knife then? Are you the one? No, I assure you, I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come to give you our best wishes. Best wishes? For me? Oh, thank you. I'm Olive Green, of course. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. Alright, let's talk about the incident. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement, what a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. The case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in hospital, I mean. Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly, by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved that case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming in to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming round seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. No, we're all so relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh no. Oh, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts. Great Britain is such a wonderful country. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts? Oh no, actually. I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road. I see. How very interesting. Oh no! Is it? Brixton is some steps away on the underground from here, and Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Centre. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not, but Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine art student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She suddenly clammed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young maiden's private affairs. Oh dear me, do forgive me. If you don't mind, I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh yes, of course, we won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narrow Fodder here? Mr. Narrow Fodder? Narrow Fodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Oh, Mr. Narrow Fodder, good. Is this for you? It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutsmeg. Mr. Natsume sent a message to me? But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? Ah! What are you waiting for? Let me see that! Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls, a case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we had to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That would be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? I'll hail Firecur at once. Uh-oh. It was only yesterday that Saseki-san was in court and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address? He may well very be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time, but we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. "21st of February, 7:18 a.m., Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Ground floor. What on earth? Oh my, the gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead. Hey, wait a minute, I know who that guy is. Last game, there were two people who just appeared in like one scene for a brief moment and then didn't appear again during the case with Soseki Natsume. So I'm thinking this is it. Like this is finally going to bring up who those guys were. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Mr. Natsume. Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? If only I just got out of court yesterday, or I've only just got out of court yesterday. I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle. I see you in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Ah! Not the horrible hairlock Sholmes. Shoo, shove off, show yourself the door. I never invited you. Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. I'm entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Grrr. Here they are, already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? It gives me heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Good morning to you too, Sunshine. Alright. Well. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shakespeare. Oh, man. I gotta let that one sit for a second. Oh my gosh. Alright. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss, as it happens, or just dead. Mr. Shakespeare. It was the landlord, old Mr. Garadeb, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fella didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garadeb got worried and kicked the door down. Fairly... Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Doesn't Mr. Garadeb have a bad leg? Oh, yeah, you're right. That was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san? Victim was pretty hard up, it seems. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. Had no money, no place to go, and no friends. There's only acquaintances with the people in this house. Miserable life, and a miserable end to it. So what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't he have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying it's because the fella looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious. But I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the, cohabiter. I know, it makes me want fish and chips every time I see him. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again. It certainly seems that way. He did just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Poor man. How unfortunate. Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fellow's been a goner that long. Body's still warm. Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Oi! I said hands off! You're gonna mess up my crime scene. Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all. No chance! I know you're kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Alright, it sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. So we can't look at anything until we... I mean, do we have to go get Iris again? So she can bully him? What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless insistence of excruciating experiences! So, the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just one story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So, did you know the victim? Were you friends? What's the matter with Sasaki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never! On my honor, I swear it! What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. Through that inspector over there! Oh no. I see you over there, Sholmes. Alright, I'll talk to you. What are you doing? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery? Patience, my dear madam, patience. We've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. My goodness! But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes? Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No, don't mind me! Forget I was here! And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! Alright, Mr. Natsume, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions? No, please, pretend I'm not here! Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant! Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail. But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time? So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Sherlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Oh, here we go. The Great Deduction. Topic 1, the cause of death. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the event that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is the soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact, yes. Merry Christmas, yes. Oh, I skipped that. Oh well. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. It appears the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, but in the end he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are 2 perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. Conclusion, poisoning from soap ingestion. Okay. Topic 2, suicide or murder. Clearly, that is the next thing we should clear up. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2. We ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? No doubt recall the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however. Certainly, the careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. though forced open now. At the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. Okay, conclusion, no possible perpetrator present. This concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes' great deduction. A truly great deduction as usual. I'm sure there's no faults. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary. In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut. And did it? As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilt the contents of my stomach? Yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it, even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh, what's that? It's Mr. Natsume. Ah! I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye, almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. Nonsense! Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Sherlock Holmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Alright, here we go. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. There we go. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the event. Okay, so we have this. We're gonna get to where... Yeah. There. There was a problem. Meaningful, indubitably. What are you looking at us for, Natsume? Well, you can't deny that a fork that implies the man was just eating something or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And, of course, only half of the bar of soap is left on the plate. But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap? Let's see. So we have a teacup. Let's see. Oh. Okay, the controls are a little different in this, they've changed a bit. There's the fork. His hat's on the floor. Let's see. Let's look at the teacup. Do you think he was drinking tea with his soap? The cup's empty, so there's no way of knowing. Ah, how about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water, and he was dissolving soap in it so he could gulp much down as possible. Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap lover that he's been made out to be. Yes, this is true. How about the fork? I suppose you'd eat soap with a fork, would you? I don't think it's a question of which implement you'd use. You shouldn't eat soap, full stop. But then why? Why does the man have a fork in his hand? Oh dear, I understand your frustration, Mr. Naruhodo, but please don't take it out on me. The point is, if we decide the man used this fork to eat the soap, we wouldn't be changing Mr. Sholmes' deduction. So we really ought to consider some other clues. Oh wait, what's this? There's soap on the floor? The other piece of soap. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamspeare must have really loved this stuff. Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at the soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table? What the? How can that be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. Ah. So the other piece of soap reveals the answer. Could it be the man was about to eat it? Of course. The other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really. For no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. I like that look Naruhodo just gave him. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Not quite. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument, then. Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it? If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? It's gotta be... What's this? Like, there's a stain there. I'm thinking it's the tea. Right? Yeah, it's a Western vessel for the serving of infusions of dried tea leaves. It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Stop putting on airs. And it's empty. Ah. So we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest that he was drinking tea. My thoughts exactly.
Take that!
Well, let's present the tea theory. Alright. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. You got to it eventually, Sholmes. Alright. With the cause of death identified, we proceeded to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? A single teacup suggests the answer. Okay, so we gotta do this. The Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in introductions so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamspeare was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Shilm suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues. Alright. Did the man dine alone? Here's not a single teacup. He's got another teacup. Look at that. It's another Western vessel for infusion. It's a teacup! And it too is empty. Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand, we can assume that it is the cup for which Mr. Shamspeare was actually drinking. But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yes, I know exactly how you feel. Oh, let me guess, his guest was Mr. Natsume?
Take that!
Well, here we go. You gotta do it. Did the man dine and die alone? The other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in the room all along. Ah! In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's Last Supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. Well, what are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable! To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know exactly who was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed. It reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Not really. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I suppose not. Time to look around again. A candle. Even Mr. Shamspeare didn't eat candles, it seems. We've already established that he didn't eat soap either. Do you think perhaps the guest brought this candle here last night? Even if he or she did, does it reveal anything about the guest's identity? Good point. There goes my idea, snuffed out like that candle will be. If you sigh so deeply, Mr. Naruhodo, you're in danger of blowing out the flame. The big pile of books. I bet that's it. There's also an empty bottle. Let's see. It's empty. Empty of liquid, but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Bother. Susato-san's quip in response was cleverer than my original riddle. What about the books? At first glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read, The Picture of Monsieur Le Cop, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gaboro. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before. Oh no. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them. That's right. And now those 3 titles are here in the room of the victim. Yet Mr. Natsume claims never to have been here before. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. A pile of familiar books now.
Take that!
Here we go. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 3 or 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop. That's just a coincidence. In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No, never! Non-negotiable! If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that those 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could only have brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there's only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Saseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Sholmes' great deduction. Conclusion, Soseki Natsume was at the scene. Solved. Deduction complete. Elementary! Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume, it would appear you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door, key, locked! Entry, exit, entirely impossible! He's so flustered he's being even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You've had plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Sherlock Sholmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? You helped, too, Yunosuke. Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me! Please, please! I'm innocent! Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken, Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. And of course... What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamspear. Ah, Mr. John Garadeb, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. Alright, let's look around, shall we? Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think he'd be more suited to a feudal lord. Daimyo or such like. With a chonmage topknot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a chonmage. Oh, you'd look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chonmage and a sword? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What has he got over here? Nothing particular of note. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van Zykes? Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste, and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. Forgive the discourtesy, but I do not deal with the pause. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now you've pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean, if you put a coin in here... That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Well, thank goodness there's no meter in our office. There's the bricked-up window. As we've seen from the outside, the window was completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property? It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh! What is it, Mr. Sato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Oh, they are. Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamspeare who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room? Oh, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge, and there's something on it. What? Outside? Yeah, what is that? Brr, it's so cold outside, you can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night, it would be cold. But more importantly, what is on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on the ledge outside the window? Oh, It was established in the previous case that back in this time there used to be a tax for the number of windows in a house, so everyone bricked their windows up. It was a long time ago, but this house never fixed that. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window? I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear, I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah! Do you see? In the middle there? There's a patch that's different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? And what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? The bar of soap has been entered into the court record. That's good to know. Important evidence, probably. Let's look at this guy's stage. I'm curious about that. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it, if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. Hey, you pretended to be a man in the last case, but that was technically in the future, so... This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights. A gas stove? London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. Alright, time to look at the actual murder victim. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion at this time, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? One of the teacups that Mr. Shamsphere and his guest drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamsphere's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Saseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. The pair of teacups. Okay. One of the green line around the cup was Mr. Natsume's. So the pinkish purple line was Shamsphere's. Okay. I'm glad we're just stealing evidence from crime scenes. That's that's where Phoenix Wright gets it from. For sure. Alright, do we have everything here that we need, or is Sholmes gonna, like, be dancing around in the background? Nope. Is he here still with us? I don't know if he is or not. We got some new locations. I feel like we need to spend a little more time investigating here. Well, what is there to investigate, Susato? Oh wait, what's this? There we go. What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there. She's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. We better take this just in case. We got torn off end of envelope. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? We don't know who that is yet. Aha! Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in the cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... What the heck is going on? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Gah! What? Out! Out, brief candle! Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed! Oh, happy day! What? Walking Dead? What just happened? The fella isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though? He was quoting Shakespeare. I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth, a soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare? So what was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life? If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime, whatever that now was. Yeah. 21st of February, Briar Road. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Saseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah! He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. It was in the last case that involved this whole area. We could go see Garadub. We could go to the prison. Briar Road, Miss Green's room, and Sholmes' place, okay? Let's see what we got here. The Garadeb household and Mr. Natsume's lodgings are in a prominent position there on the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can't help feeling that it's at a bit of a slant. It does rather look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Saseki-san is such a hunchback. There's that snowman. Why has somebody built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? But it already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man. I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections. Head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? London's blanketed in fog again today, and the sky is covered in cloud. But if you clearly look in the distance, you can just make out the Crystal Tower being built. Oh, the Crystal Tower, yes. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Everyone's talking about the Great Exhibition of London at the moment, it seems. Well, it's to be the largest event of its kind anywhere in the world, with technology and scientists from all over. I can't wait for it myself. Do you think visiting students from the Far East like us will be granted entry? The last Great Exhibition was held in London, had more than 6 million visitors, it seems. And this time, the British are determined to make it an even bigger success, to outdo the Paris Exposition. I see. That's an incredible number of people. And with so many people expected to attend, we should easily be able to slip in unnoticed. There's always the honest approach of buying tickets at the main entrance, Mr. Naruhodo. Alright, I think we've looked at everything here for the most part. With the exception of the top floor where Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows. But the tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, it is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. Okay. Let's see if we can go to the Garrideb's room. 21st of February, the Garrideb's room. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top-floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garrideb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garrideb as anyone, really. Came straight back here out of that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garrideb. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room of... Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? Alright. We've got a lot of evidence we're building up now. Yeah, because we have his receipts. The street map. Huh. That's the stuff from... Yeah, what is in there anyway? Oh, what is it, Mr. Naruhodo? This bar of soap. When we first found it, I could have sworn that there was some sort of round disc in this depression just here. A reddish one. Yes, you're right. I remember it too. But now the depression is completely empty. Where could the disc have gone? Perhaps it melted, and that's why it was out in the cold? And then we have the teacups. I'm wondering if Iris or Sholmes could test this for poison. This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before he had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down, too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. Alright, no tea ring in the inside of Mr. Natsume's cup. That's probably going to be significant. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamsteer was drinking from, then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh, really? I've never noticed before. You've never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear, so many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. Okay, that didn't update anything. And we have the torn-off envelope. I can't find anything out of place, okay? Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed. Mr. Sato, I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never. Okay. We have the... What's that on the... Oh, that's Kazuma, yeah. It's very fine embroidery here that shows the name of the armband's owner. In this case, Kazuma Soki. So I'm always carrying my best friend's hopes and dreams with me on my right arm, just here, all the time. To be honest, it's something that weighs very heavily on me. Oh, I didn't realize it was such a burden, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, I think it's why my right shoulder aches so much. Are you sure that's not to do with you reading in bed or the like? Right, we'll be right back. Alright. Back. Let us continue talking to Mr. Garadeb. But first, let's show him my armband. Mr. Garadeb, could I show you this? Been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. Afraid I'm rather tired. I haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time, then. Ah, yes, his room. There's his... That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garadeb? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know? Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zykes, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Mrs. Sato. Very tactful indeed. Good to see Mr. Garadeb's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember. Yes, I remember, because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know it to look at me now, perhaps, when I had my devil-may-care days, you know? Devil-may-care? What did you get up to? Well, all in the past now, of course. Best left there. Best not. I want to know now. Ah, yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garadeb? Ah, you remember, do you? This little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing firing on your old man? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one of these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence that resulted from one of my little mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? There's a single apron drying on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look. No, Mr. Naruhodo. That's the real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now, the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? We know what the screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fire altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear, this must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say, people talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half. A rotten show all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Gyaradev. And that old portrait, eh? Done by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs. Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So you did, presumably. I bally well did not. Oh. Portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent, eh? Yet it's still there proudly on the wall. And there's the giant mess on the wall. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of My Wand, don't you know? Ah, the experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. Really thought we were done for, the whole ballet company. We were taking a real pounding from their cannons. All we could do was run for our lives. Oh, I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. Ugh, that's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Alright, what do we got here? That's an impressive collection of cakes on that fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well. Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know? Oh, time has stood still. Now that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. In the window. There's a good view over the wintry East End from up here. It's an oppressive gray scene. That's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign cultures seem strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel when arriving in Japan and seeing people with a shomage topknot. Well, that's a good point. Alright. Let's talk about the morning's incident. Must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, with no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? I Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamspear took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Saseki-san would fall into. Why not both? Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course, Shakespeare. I read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know? Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sal, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspear would have much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude. I like we've just fully established that Susato can read Naruhodo's thoughts. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now, it must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. A failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garodeb noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspear got back. And the chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Mr. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garodeb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. I'm not a big fan of stairs, not with his blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know the precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor? I mean, ah! That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Then how did you know, Mr. Garodeb? It's the gas, woman! The gas tells me everything. The gas? Speaking gas. What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I've more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside, and the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms in the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, wouldn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. The fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless and long worn out. Barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they go brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. Got it. Oh, of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh. That's fascinating, Mr. Garrideb. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. And I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case, either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrideb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we had to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. Alright. "21st of February, local prison, cell 9. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess, you're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah! Cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in this cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, that selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy, William. Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamspeare was never actually dead in the first place. Yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh. Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamspeare, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. What do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Oh, why am I cursed like this? Alright, let's go to it. What happened? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell, but Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me out with that accursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings, and that evening at 9:30 it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare. So you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting, and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. It ties in with what Mr. Garrideb said, that the victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, and I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene, then? And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet, who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare. And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea? No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit. I swear it, categorically. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed, that you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me, they all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then, 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books! Books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave, or blinkered. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I really realized how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, is it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who died in that room lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. It really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. I know it. And that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Phew, Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. Of course, Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You mean Mr. Garrett? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, then he'll be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps in his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shakespeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, he'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Oh, I thought it was Sholmes for a second. It's Inspector Gregson. Inspector Gregson? I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which do you want first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first? One hope is all you have. hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why did you ask me my preference? As you might have heard, victim, Mr. Shamspeare, was just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors. We managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't it that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no, that's not on the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamspeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Ah! By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. That wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume. No! So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. We want to make the necessary preparations. No! And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court, and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. To be continued. I wonder if we're going straight to court. Let's do it. Yes! We're gonna save. (22nd of February, 9:23 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. The Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line! Good morning! Good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this! Another morning, another murder! And here I am again in this hellhole! Can't keep coming to court! I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh! Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning. So, here we are again. Yes, again. Judicial Assistant Ms. Mizukatoba, Esquires, what's the bad news? Oh dear, you heard, did you? If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say! Oh, I am sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Mrs. Sato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barrack Van Zykes. Van Zykes? Ah! Oh no. Oh no, no! The so-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth. We managed to pull through, but still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter, after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zykes is the prosecutor. Oh no! But even if the person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another. And we've experienced it firsthand. The man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal, right here in the Old Bailey. Do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits and now by the Reaper. Pair of petrifying perils, potentially. Well, if it's potentially... At least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Yes? I'm innocent! You have to believe me! You, more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. And this promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh, yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh, if he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. And that could be seen as weakness. If Lord Van Zykes were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least, that's my gut feeling. Mr. Naruhodo? You're right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, well said, welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Well said. I swear on this sword at my side, and the spirit of Cosmo that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free with honor. Oh, yes. "22nd of February, 9:40 a.m., the Old Bailey, courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just in my imagination, it's really there. Lord Van Zykes has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all. And now, he's back into the courtroom, though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Sasaki-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Absolutely! I had a feeling that Larrikin wasn't innocent before. I must say, I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right. Oh, well, I rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. We have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. I couldn't agree more. I'll need to take home before Bob tonight, or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light here, and lead his flock to a righteous verdict. The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt. 6 citizens of London chosen at random? Or at least that's the idea. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Hello? Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. Very well, let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zykes, the opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate the most blood-curdling crime, namely that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. Oh, the cape's coming off early. The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Soseki Natsume from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume? Yes, my lord. Sir? I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken, but you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember it as if it were yesterday. It was the day before, in fact, my lord, but close enough. Believe me, this is the last place I want to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Gaudeb household, where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare. The defendant had already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord, suspecting something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident? Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible. Although the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, lives to tell the tale. It very nearly didn't. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. And I have a photographic print here, and I took at the time to show how it looked. There we go. Yes, a chilling scene indeed. The man looks very much deceased. That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. Very well, I shall accept this photographic print as evidence for the court. The crime scene photograph. Yep. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes! As the defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted. Haunted by evil spirits? Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings. There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. A woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned. And me? What about me? I've nearly been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened. When I returned from Mr. Shamspeare's room, I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed. But before long, the stove went out. And somebody tried to kill me! You must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold, my runny nose would freeze. The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he is named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in the cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Good grief! Ora! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? Evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again, never! The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses now for a formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection? None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord! Catastrophic night. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor and I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Strict 9 takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward. Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they? Why didn't I think of that? Well, as it happens, no. I haven't been able to. Did I hear you correctly, Inspector? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance? How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't that the first thing you should have done? My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea, not that it was overlooked. Unable? Why? It's simple enough. There was none left. Not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed. With current scientific techniques, it's not possible to test for poison under such circumstances. You only need a drop, but that one drop does actually have to exist, funnily enough. The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than the tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. I see, thank you. The matter is clear. Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend. What? You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused's guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose, and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. Counsel for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. Cross-examination. Alright. Okay. Just press through the statements here. Were you and your neighbor good friends then? No. We weren't friends. Not at all, not at all. Never, ever. A simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit? Mr. Shakespeare fancies himself as having great literary knowledge. As a fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together. Come now, the Nipponese could understand the finer points of English literature. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume. It was the day of my last trial when I was acquitted. I just arrived back at my lodgings. When I ran into Mr. Shakespeare outside on the street, that was at around 6 o'clock. We exchanged 1 or 2 pleasantries, but it soon turned into a heated discussion. He was on his way out at the time, though. I promised to visit his room that evening at 9 to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? No! Not 1, not 2, not any! Not at all! Never, ever! A simple no would have sufficed, I feel. Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room. A heated literary debate over a nice hot drink.
Hold it!
A literary debate about Shakespeare's works, I think you said, didn't you? Shakespeare? Ah, a very worthy topic of conversation, I must say. Oh yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet, who was stronger? It was a profoundly pleasurable parley. Romeo and Juliet? Who was stronger? I know I'm gonna regret asking this, but how did the debate go? Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment, so we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally. What? Mr. Shakespeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for just such a contest. So when you say a reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume? He is Romeo, I is Juliet. And after a vigorous, wild tussle, I as Juliet came out on top. A victory I'll cherish forever! I dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim. Correct. I boiled the water in my room and made a pot to take with me. I'd heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see. It's true, there was no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room. I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless, of course it was. Do you have any basis for that statement, witness? And the next statement is, his tea was harmless. Okay.
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there?
That's correct. Anyone would think the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. He must have licked it dry.
Which is a pity, because one drop is all we would have needed to analyze it for poison. And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume? Yes, definitely! By heaven and earth, I swear it!
The landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. He confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night. And how was the landlord able to attest to this?
He,
said it was the lamps, I believe. The lamps, Inspector?
When tenants return to their rooms and start using gas, the lamps in other parts of the house flicker. Yes, Mr. Garadeb seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants. There's only one key to Mr. Shamspeare's room, I know that for certain, so he must have locked the door himself from inside his room.
The victim has confirmed that to be the case, yes.
So I'm right, my tea was harmless, completely harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that.
It's not that simple, I'm afraid.
What do you mean?
Let's
see, strychnine takes time to effect. People don't keel over immediately.
Hold it!
So let's look through here. How long does it take for symptoms to appear then?
According to the coroner I was speaking to at the yard, about 30 minutes after the poison's consumed.
Then the victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping and stiffness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. So there's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. There seems to be a lot of different types of poison in the world, that's for sure. Oh dear, death by poisoning again. It's always so awful. 30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. You can't deny that. It further degrades Seki-san's alibi.
We'll have the medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord.
Spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it.
Very well. The court will add this report to the court record as evidence.
The victim's medical report has been entered into the court record. Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms. Great. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands.
Hold it!
Okay. The argument still stands, you say.
This is what Mr. Natsume has been saying, isn't it? A pair of them drank tea together that night, so if there was poison in it, the victim wouldn't have been able to lock the door after the accused left later on.
Exactly. Oh, me and my tea are innocent. Sweet and innocent, I tell you.
I'm afraid, sir, that doesn't follow.
You see, strychnine is a slow-acting poison.
In other words, it takes time for symptoms to appear.
So you could have left the room up to 30 minutes after the victim drank the tea. And as long as you did that, Mr. Shamspeare could have locked the door after you'd gone. But no. We drank the tea straight away. The battle over whether Romeo or Juliet was stronger, that came after the tea.
Do you have any evidence to support that statement?
In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying. Drink tea while it's hot. Sure, a proverb will satisfy the prosecution.
I'm afraid there's no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are sufficient grounds to infer his guilt in this matter.
No. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? If I could voice a personal opinion, Mr. Naruhodo, of course, go ahead. Mr. Natsume is arguing for his innocence so adamantly and so persistently. Yet Inspector Gregson just brushes what he says aside. It's really quite infuriating. I agree. So we need to find an inconsistency with what the inspector is saying, I think. I'm afraid so. As things stand, the jurors are sure to find Mr. Natsume guilty. As I see it, what we need to focus on is the poison and the tea. Let's listen carefully to this testimony again. Yes. Alright. Poison and the tea. Well, what do we got? Ingestion of a small quantity of strychnine. Toxic effects present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of the substance having been mixed with the tea the victim was drinking, but no sample could be obtained for testing. The poisoning incident occurred at around 1:30 a.m. on 21st of February. Assessed from the victim's pocket watch that appears to have broken when the man collapsed after the delayed onset of symptoms. No container for the poison was found at the scene. Okay? Oh, there's the ring. That's, yep. Let's see. I don't know, is that... Strychnine, people don't keel over immediately. Perfectly able to lock the door, the argument still stands. Huh. Okay. Let's think through this again. So... let's see... Okay, so we need to focus on the inspector. The poison... and the tea. So let's look at what Gregson's having to say here. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. So one of the big things is that there's still a ring in the victim's tea. So, here's a thought I have to present the teacups here, possibly. Let's see.
Objection!
Nope, that's not it, I don't think. No, there are clearly grounds for being suspicious of that last statement. I'm sorry, counsel, but I fail to see why. Well, you know, we're just playing devil's advocate.
Yes, you do appear to have something of the devil in you, Mr. Naruto.
Says the man merely dishing out penalties. Okay, so that's not right. Able to lock the door after his guest left. This one's challenging me. It was around 9 o'clock when I visited my neighbor and took some tea. Got it. They had a heated literary debate. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. Is this gonna be worth anything?
Objection!
Nope, that's not gonna do it either. Statement is clearly contradictory when you consider this piece of evidence. Yes, undeniably.
You say it's undeniable, counsel, but I fail to see any contradiction here at all.
I think perhaps that itself is the contradiction.
Indeed.
time for a rethink. Alright, so that's not it. Huh. I'm trying to think here about some of the possibilities. So we have the... Let's see. Not that. I need my evidence. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guests left. The argument still stands. Well, they drank the tea, then they had the debate, right? That's the only thing I can think of.
Objection!
Aha! Got it. The argument still stands, you say? I think not, Inspector. Come again? I think you'll find that you've overlooked a very significant chronological inconsistency here.
What? What do you want about?
According to this report, the victim must have consumed the poison at around 1:30 in the morning, and yet the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11. Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Oh, got them both.
The defense's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zykes?
Oh, he's got his glass. Is he going to throw it? Oh. Pray forgive the discourtesy if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hollowed chalice this luncheon. How could it have happened, you ask? Yo! I do hate to shatter illusions, but my Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. A phantom? Is it so hard to imagine that the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? For example, at the time stated in the medical report. Yes, at around 1:30.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor, and in Japan, there is a well-known saying, drink tea while it's hot.
Objection!
And in my country, there is an even more apt saying. There is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned. Other possibilities.
What sort of possibilities, counsel?
Well, for example, the man could have had another visitor.
Another visitor? That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend. From someone who has nothing to substantiate it.
Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition.
You suggest this may have been a suicide, counsel?
Objection!
Mr. Shamspe has categorically denied suicide. The idea canon must be discounted.
Objection!
But it could be lying.
Is something wrong, Lord Van Zykes?
I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray, forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Oh. Who said hold it? Out. Oh.
Out! Out, brief candle!
Life is but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Who, sir, are you?
William Shakespeare, my lord. Alas, was I undone by these bitter events? I am the victim.
What's he doing here?
The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness?
Very well, counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself.
Happy am I, Shakespeare, to regale thee with a tale of woe, my lord.
But I still have my own tale to tell, my own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence in perfect English. That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim.
Here we go. Wait, who's... Alright. So that's Mr. Shakespeare, but who's that other man beside him? Yes, I feel sure that we've caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. A writer of words so sweet, they do scent the breeze. An inventor of ideas so profound, they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shakespeare. With a great bond to be recalled to life anew. Lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle. William Shakespeare.
Oh, the name's Metterman. Adrian B. Metterman. I work for the Ultimate Guest Company, East End branch office.
Ah, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road. Oh yes, she's right, it's him. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Saseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruto? Excuse me, could we have a word? Yes, we spotted him outside Mr. Garadeb's house that morning. And he's a gas company employee? What does he have to do with this case?
So, Mr. William Shakespeare, you are the victim in this miserable affair, correct?
Oh heaven, oh hell, you command me to remember. That sweet poison that did cross me and crossed mine innocent lips. I subpoenaed him for the trial with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any doom for doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure. Behold, you have only to rearrange the letters of my name to see that me's a seraph, an angel indeed. Thus be I noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily honest of heart, all as heavenly angels be. Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name? No, not at all. The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid. They're actually taking this seraph anagram idea seriously?
Thank you, witness. This is for your illuminating introductions.
But, my lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shakespeare doing here? The gas man, I mean.
What? Me? Well, now?
Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. Recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence? When you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question, and moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar. What? No, I didn't quite say that. This young chin-stoker is here to convert your wild claims, conclusively. Is that not so, Mr. Metterman?
Hang on, no, I'm just here. I hereby call for your formal testimonies. You will tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
One may smile and smile and be a villain. Yes, It doth pain me, but let the truth be spoken, the truth of that wintry night of my discontent. The wintry night of my discontent. The snow lay about. My neighbour did cometh in the evening, bearing a gift of tea. But merry, bitter was his drink, and when he left I did fall prostrate on my table. 'Twas the tea alone did pass my lips that late hour, naught else.
I was outside this bloke's window freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room. No one else visited his room but that short little round-backed Eastern fella.
Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shamspeare's room all night?
That's right. Of course, the bloke's window is all but blocked up, isn't it? But there's a little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room. So I spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered in through that. The question is, sir, why? Ah! Well now, that's because he's on my list.
What a piece of work is a man! Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment? What are you talking about? This buzzing busybody hath no part in this play. I pray thee, pay him no heed, make no more ado about his tedious words.
What do you say about me?
Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more.
Indeed, that is so.
And as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals, there was no other than the accused present at the time who could have carried out this crime.
Well, I believe this may be the final testimony of the trial. Now, counsel, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. The wintry night of my discontent. Okay.
Hold it!
To be clear, by neighbor, you're referring to the defendant, Mr. Natsume? Oh, indeed, sire. Perchance thou wist that I call him the man from upstairs. And at what time did the mustachioed Nipponese visit you in your room? A meeting was promised for the hour of 9, and lo did he come to tender a gift of fragrant tea.
Details which are in accordance with the defendant's own testimony, yes.
And we were broiled in such a literary debate as history hath not seen before. By which I presume he means their discussion about who was the stronger, Romeo or Juliet. I, Shakespeare, did play the part of young Romeo, whilst my neighbour played the fair Juliet. Each of us dressed as what our characters be, to bring weight upon our merry experiment.
I dare not imagine the scene.
Fealty, thy name is woman. Canst thou imagine how dismayed I was? Yes, I had heard of the Eastern art of jujitsu, but ne'er did I dream it would be a skill practiced by the comely maiden. Juliet beat Romeo up? This is not helping our case.
I believe the court has heard enough about your earth-shattering literary debate.
Perhaps you could reiterate your statement about the tea that the accused brought to your room? My liege, I am thy servant. Gladly I would do thy bidding.
Hold it!
Let me stop you right there. Mr. Natsume left your room at 11 o'clock, but it wasn't until after 2 that the poison made you collapse. That amounts to more than 3 hours of missing time. If the defendant had really put the poison into your tea, that 3-hour window of time is something you're going to have to explain. Gladly, 'tis an easy task. What? I did drink of the tea, not while my guest is tarry, but after he took leave of me. Faith, 'twas stone cold, but at 1 hour post midnight, verily were my lips parched.
Objection!
That doesn't sound normal. Nay, 'tis quite ordinary, sire. After all, thou wouldst recall our fiery debate. Amidst such argument, there'd be no time for fiery tea. Romeo and Juliet again. Who was stronger? Mr. Shakespeare, in summary, allow me to confirm. Did you not come here with the intention of naming your attacker? But of course, my liege. 'Twas the stupid lover of words that attempt to shuffle me off this mortal coil. We all know what that means. Tea alone.
Hold it!
So nothing else, okay. So, you didn't have any kind of evening meal? Dinner? Supper? Huh. Fie on luxury! Fie on gluttony! To eat thrice daily is but a waste of time. Sorry? I would that my belly were full. No more oft than the sun doth rise. Well, most heroic eating habits, I must say. Night and day do I fill my hours with learned study of the great bard and playwright. Hence it is that there doth not my chamber be then the costumes of mine art. That would appear to be the case. Even a rodent was found starved to death in your room. Now I think of it, it's not just food that was conspicuously missing from that room, is it? I don't recall seeing a single play or script anywhere. For I have devoured them all. You've eaten them? Every word be within my skull. Didst thou imagine otherwise? Right, that wasn't misleading at all. No. Could you turn around, do you think? Which brings us to the conclusion that the only way the poison could have passed the victim's lips is in the tea. We talk about Mr. Meterman.
Hold it!
But the windows of that house have all been filled in. A historical artifact of the now defunct window tax.
Yeah, you're right there. All bricked up horribly. But as it happens, there's a little part of the brickwork at the bottom corner that's been opened up. I was looking in through that gap.
Yes, there were a few bricks loose, weren't there? And for some strange reason, a couple of bars of soap lined up on the ledge outside as well.
I don't like going around poking my chin in other people's business, especially on freezing cold nights. But that was my orders, so that's what I'll keep doing, as long as there's breath in my body.
What's with all the theatricals today? Out of interest, Mr. Meterman, after the accused had left and returned to his own lodgings, did you see the victim leave the room at all?
No, he never left. He was in that room the whole time, as far as I'm concerned.
And we can therefore discount the possibility of suicide. How can you be so sure of that? The police carried out a thorough investigation of the scene and found no receptacle for the poison. And since we know the victim didn't leave his room, and hence didn't dispose of the poison's container himself, it's clear that this was no attempted suicide. Only the culprit could have removed the receptacle.
Oh, yes. Lucidly explained, counsel. Thank you.
It really was. You can't argue with the logic. No.
Hold it!
Okay. You say a short little round-backed Eastern fella, so you can't be sure it was the defendant then?
Objection!
How many other short little round-backed Nipponese with a mustache do you think are in London?
Well, of course, it's only a narrow gap, and it was quite dark, so I didn't notice the mustache. But he showed up at around 9, so I'm pretty sure of myself.
And when the person you saw arrived, did he and Mr. Shamspeare drink tea together?
Nah, sorry, I couldn't say.
Why not?
Because I couldn't see into the room all that well, could I? What did I see was the silhouette of that little round-back fella wearing a pretty dress. Then the pair of them started off some kind of wrestling match. I tell you, I didn't know what to make of it.
I suppose that was the Romeo and Juliet championship battle getting underway. Mr. Meterman, allow me to confirm one final time. Apart from the accused, can you state with certainty that no one else visited the victim on the night in question?
No question. Gaspman's honor.
Well, we got another hold it.
My lord! Goodness me, yes, Mr. Foreman. I've kept my mouth shut and listened up to now, but this has gone on long enough. Are you all with me? Yes!
Are we to understand that you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are in agreement with one another? That you've reached a unanimous decision?
Too right, we have. Are you all with me? Yes.
Wait, no. The defense is in the middle of a cross-examination.
To be honest, I was holding out a bit of hope for you, young man. Especially after you identified those few hours that followed the accused leaving the victim's room.
Yes, the 3 missing hours, as you put it. But in the end, what difference do they make? None as far as I can see.
And since that's now apparent, there's really no reason to delay our decision any longer. Like I was saying before, if I don't take 5 bob home with me tonight, the missus will blow her top.
What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said.
Very well, let the court be apprised of your decisions. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings as to the defendant's culpability.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Well,
All of you?
well, it would appear that the jury is indeed unanimous.
So this time at least, it seems justice will be done. All's well that ends well, as they say. This calls for a toast, I feel. To the guilty being punished. Get up, Mr. Naruhodo, please! The trial isn't over yet. What do you mean, Mr. Sato? What about the information I found in this Encyclopedia of British Law I have? That obscure right that belongs to the defense in these situations. Remember? Because you used it yesterday, technically. A summation examination. Yes, that's right. We don't have a jury in Japanese courts, of course. But here in a British court of law, if we can reverse the decisions of the majority of the jurors, we can force the trial to continue. This trial can't end now. Whatever it takes, I just can't let that happen. The defense moves to invoke its right to a summation examination, my lord. Why am I not surprised at my learned Nipponese friend's inability to admit defeat? You choose to cling desperately to some archaic rule you barely comprehend, instead of accepting the truth.
Certainly no other defense counsel in recent times has exercised the right to a summation examination,
because they all know that once the jury's mind is set, it cannot be altered.
Nevertheless, the right remains and must be upheld.
Except for all the times we've changed it before, but whatever.
The defense counsel's request is granted. The court will proceed with the summation examination outlined in the Encyclopedia of British Law.
Thank you, my lord.
Are you and your fellows prepared, Mr. Foreman? Believe me, my lord, we all know about this young lad's tenacity. We're ready for it. Very well. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby call upon each of you to state the grounds upon which you find the defendant guilty of the crime for which he stands accused.
Judicial findings. Judicial findings. The jury's contentions. I actually think I'm going to stop there for tonight, and we can pick this back up next week. So this is probably a good stopping point. So I will make sure to save, and then here we go. So I will see you guys all next week, probably Saturday. All right, see ya. All right.